guys, how's it going? Mythrong4 here, and today we're gonna talk about the new supply line disruption daily challenge that came out recently in Azure Lane. So to give you guys a little bit of an introduction into it, this daily challenge was released globally, except for in the Korean server, as far as I can check. For Azure Lane, as of the July 11th patch, it is only clearable 2 times per week, but is available all 7 days. This is a pretty innovative challenge because, firstly, this is the first manual only mode, so you can only play this in manual, no auto battle. And it's also the first time that you get to control submarines and utilize submarines in a way that's for more than just chip damage, which, if you have watched some of my previous videos, you know that I don't really have a high thought on what submarines are at the moment, but this is kind of that first step to give us that boost. This will be a little introduction on how the mechanics of the challenge works, as well as a few small tips and tricks to give you your submarines a boost so that you can clear some of the higher levels of this challenge. So the way submarines work, in this daily challenge, you're only required to bring 3 submarines. You only need to bring up to 3 submarines, so as long as you only have at least 1 submarine, you're fine. Unlike regular Vanguard formations, which typically features all 3 ships on the screen, this challenge will have you control 1 submarine at a time, and the 2 other submarines, if you have them on your fleet, are going to be kept off to the side. We'll talk a little more about that when we get into the gameplay aspects of it, but rather than having the airstrike, torpedo, and salvo options that you would normally have as your attack options, as demonstrated on the left side, although it's a little bit small and foggy, I apologize. You will instead have the barrage, the switch, the torpedo, and the dive options. For the sake of this video, I use a pretty weak composition just so that I can give you an overview of the mechanics themselves, and I use relatively weak submarines to give you an idea of just how challenging the higher levels can be for these fights. So going into some of the first bits of talking about how this challenge works. So just like in most manual mode, you control using the joystick to move your submarine around. You'll notice that underneath her health bar there is a blue decreasing health bar. That is for your oxygen, which represents how long you can stay underwater before you are required to resurface. Torpedoes typically fire in a straight line, and you can hold and aim for a set amount of time in order to get your shot relatively quickly. And mines are a pretty unique barrier in that you can take damage from them only if you're on the same surface level as that mine. So you can see some of the mines that are above the water, you can only get hit by them when you are surfaced, and the ones that are under the water, you can only get hit when you are submerged. As you can see, you can take submarines are relatively squishy on their own, and each of the submarines have their own unique health bars and unique oxygen bars. So it's important to be able to switch between each of the submarines in order to kind of toggle between the oxygen bars and health bars at the same time, because when you switch into a new submarine, you have the ability to replenish your oxygen when they're on the side, which you can see on the left side of the screen. And when they die, you automatically get a new submarine sent out in place of the old submarine. An important thing to note is that regardless of whether you use the switch command or if your submarine dies, they always start submerged. So why should you do supply line disruption before I kind of go back into my little ramble? So in principle, this daily challenge is entirely optional, optional, and it's not the highest priority to complete, especially since you can only really get rewards 2 times a week. However, you can get some really nice rewards for completing this challenge. Oftentimes, you'll be receiving submarine equipment boxes, coins, equipment blueprints, a lot of which go into additional, like, higher tier submarine equipment, as well as a few equipment enhanced parts. So while it's not the most luxurious daily challenge, it's definitely worth trying your hand at it, since you have 7 days, and since you only get it twice, you may as well get it when it's convenient for you. A few tips so that you know how to improve your submarines. Every submarine has 2 slots dedicated to submarine torpedoes, which are a little different from normal torpedoes. 1 slot for destroyer guns, and 2 auxiliary slots. It's highly recommended that you put stuff that boosts your torpedo stat or your durability on these auxiliary stats. Gear and limit breaks are the king for clearing the higher stages. I highly recommend that you play the lower levels in order to start like accumulating those higher tier torpedoes. Since most of us probably did not really spend as much time like farming for torpedo equipment. When submerged, you can only attack with the special barrage if your max limit broken or your torpedoes, while when you are surface, you get access to your destroyer guns. And lastly, it's important to kind of understand how the aggro works, which we'll go into with the next few video clips. But an important thing to note, like I said, or submarine torpedoes are not the same as the torpedoes that you put on your regular ships. And auxiliary equipment is significantly limited for all the submarines. But so a few strategies that you notice. Surface ships only start becoming aggressive if you are surfaced or if you stay within that range. And you can see that meter build up. And when they have the double exclamation point, that's the point where you are going to get under fire. When they're in the exclamation point or in the question mark phase, that is when they are starting to de-aggro. So you can use that as an opportunity to kind of switch out your ships, maybe switch into a more tanky ship as you're trying to make a getaway. Resurface while you're trying to regain oxygen. Those are just a few examples of how you can control your aggro. That way you don't take as much damage. Because the thing about the surface ships is that while surface, they can attack you with torpedoes. However, when you are submerged, you will be struck with depth charges, which are the kind of little flying arc-shaped torpedoes, and both of them can deal a considerable amount of damage, especially if you're doing it with relatively low-level ship or submarines. As you can see, I'm using essentially like level 1 and level 2 submarines in order to try and traverse the level 50 areas. But if you take notice, there are ways that you can navigate the map safely, even when you're severely underleveled. It's just a matter of understanding when you need to resurface, when you need to switch, when you need to submerge yourself in order to kind of switch the aggro and avoid the mines. Keep in mind to note that cargo ships are optional, however they do increase the magnitude of what rewards you get. So it is not required for you to be able to sink every cargo ship. It is only required for you to be able to sink the final ship that's at the end of the level. Fortunately, since I had only level 1 submarines, I was not going to be able to do that anytime soon. So this is really me kind of padding my own discussion and my own narration that way, in case I have a few thoughts that might have slipped my mind. that happens. But ultimately, it's not a. The design of the fights is actually very fun. I actually really enjoy because it teaches you how to be resourceful and it teaches you like how to conserve your uh, torpedo salvos. Since unlike in regular fights, they do not replenish. So you're only given 24 shots by default in these daily challenges, and I find this a lot of fun actually. Ultimately, this is a pretty welcoming addition to the Azure Lane experience. It gives auto players an opportunity to play manual in these very small but amusing situations, and it gives manual players a fresh of breath air so that they can kind of take a break from their daily routines. It is also the first time that submarines are playing a prevalent role in Azure Lane since their release. So hopefully we get more content that gives us a chance to try these new things in this way. It gives us an opportunity to try new variations of manual play, and it also gives us an opportunity to show prowess using new ships or ships that we might not necessarily have been using previously, but in kind of this new angle that we might not experience just playing the regular game as it was intended to do. But that kind of about does it for my thoughts on this event. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoy this type of content, please like, comment, and subscribe for more. I'll do a follow-up to this once I get a little more information, but until then, be on the lookout for more cool Azure Lane content, most likely ship and event analysis, and I'll see you guys then.